home stories, but you also have this. So here's class stuff. We've got the butler, the housemaid, the gamekeeper's daughter, but then there's this excitable Welsh temperament. One of the things that we talk about a lot in the Sherlock Holmes stories is how much they construct a notion of Englishness, what does it mean to be English, and you construct that definition both by talking about what it is, but you also talk about it by talking about what it isn't. And his idea, what's English, I mean, he means English, Scottish, Welsh, totally different. You know? So in analyzing this passage, a student has to think about that while they're thinking about the other things. And then a final thing that I use, small group discussions. I let them form groups. Each group has a different topic, and they talk about it amongst themselves, and then they come back and sort of give the class highlights of what they talked about, and then usually the discussion will go beyond that. So here's some examples from the Forrester Wolf class of topics that I gave them that get them thinking about identifying and disentangling these kind of different streams that flow into it, and the sometimes problematic relations among them. So these are both passage candida, which lends itself in terms of this topic quite naturally to this kind of analysis. And then here's one that I gave them for Howard's End. And how is it defined? How is it constructed? How does it contrast? And Italy and England, European countries, whatever, but in Forster's novel, there's a world of difference, and people become different people when they go to Italy and stuff like that. And students can also see how this works now, sort of what a parallel example might be. So these are just different ways to get them thinking about these things. So sort of summary version of what I think of myself as doing in these terms. If you can incorporate topical material, do. Don't put it in if it doesn't belong there, but if you can, do it. When you do bring it in, make sure that you put it alongside other things so that it doesn't feel like you're ramming it down their throats, or they will resent it. So we do it in Norwegian film and we do it in Spanish language. Get students actively involved in gathering more information and thinking critically about what they're finding. So it's not just a kind of dump like this is found, but how do I understand this? What questions might be asked of it? And then finally, for like the case of major English authors, if topical incorporation is possible, get them thinking about how constructed these categories are, and then that helps them see, again, parallel examples. There was a really interesting student in the Holmes Christie class who took every plot and translated it into like contemporary Southside Chicago terms, and it was very entertaining, and it was very interesting as well, and it did, I think, help people think about how these things are not fixed in stone. We might think they're immutable, but in fact they're not. So.
Okay. At the IUPUI campus in Indianapolis, the urban campus of Indiana University. I am in the Writing and Literacy program. I teach writing from introductory courses all the way up to graduate courses. I, in fact, direct the program director for the Writing and Literacy graduate program. We have a brand new graduate certificate in teaching writing that is so far very successful and promising, I think. When Professor Gomez asked what we are not doing in the classroom, my answer to her would be, we're not doing enough education about language and about difference to address the sensitivities that students have when they come to the university about their language. And what I'm going to talk about today is how I do that in the writing classroom, and what I'm suggesting other teachers might try. Our speaker this afternoon Dr. Sanchez made the point about faculty connecting with their students. And that is, I think, another answer to Professor Gomez's question. And I thought we saw that wonderfully demonstrated in Jason's presentation this morning, Jason connecting with the rest of us. It was wonderful discussion, interaction. I don't know if you all knew each other, but it seemed like you did because it was very interactive. And it was very exciting to witness that. When I wrote Practical Pedagogy for Composition in Linguistic Diversity in the Classroom, I set out to suggest strategies that teachers could use as a way of valuing language difference, a way of creating an environment for discussion of language differences, Englishes in the classroom, while also preparing students for academic writing. The challenge we face today continues to be how to take a half a century of research on language diversity, on literacy, and translate it into meaningful classroom practices. Given the changes in demographics readily apparent in colleges and universities today, and the onset of global Englishes that conform to many different standards of English, we cannot continue to teach standard American English as though it's the only acceptable English, the only correct English, the only means of effective communication. Rotten English, this book, edited by Dora Ahmad. It's titled Rotten English, and it is a book all in non-standard Englishes written by writers all over the world, including essays by James Baldwin, by Gloria Anzaldúa, by Janelle Akib, and others. If we recognize only one standard, this collection doesn't exist. It doesn't count. And this is often what happens in our classrooms when our concern is only about correctness and not about effective communication. Too many of our students fall through the cracks because we fail to tap into their resources, their linguistic and cultural competencies. This is Students' Right to Their Own Language, passed by our national organization back in 1974. It's historic, monumental. We're still talking about it and writing about it today. Michelle Hall-Kells is doing what I'm doing with language difference at the University of New Mexico, but she's going about it a different way. I'm working in first-year writing and trying to change the way that we teach academic writing to all students who come to the university. She is working from the top down and is re-theorizing, rethinking traditional writing across the curriculum. And she's very much interested in ethno-linguistic matters, and she wants all faculty to think about writing across the curriculum and ethno-linguistic influence. So it's a huge project, and this is the way that she characterizes teaching English in the academy today. And I'll just read this last